All right, guys, welcome to Take Your Base. I'm your host, Flav Oriano, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. All right, guys, so baseball season, the regular season is over. We're about to go into the playoffs. Playoffs start tomorrow. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, first game starts at 2 o'clock, and wow, the abbreviated 60-game season is over. Like I just said, so there's some teams that made the playoffs that wasn't really anticipating for them to make the playoffs. There's some disappointments. Kind of expected certain teams to make the playoffs, and they did. What a crazy 60-game season! And wow, all right, so yeah, so we ended up having a very interesting season. Like I said, some teams that I thought should have made it. One of those teams is, of course, my New York Mets. They didn't make the playoffs. I expected them to, especially with the fact that baseball had announced that they're gonna have 8 teams from each league made the playoffs, and unfortunately, for some reason, the Mets do Metish type of things. They did not make the playoffs. You had off season, you had injuries like all season injuries like Noah Syndergaard getting Tommy John, Marcus Stroman opting out, Yoenis Cespedes opting out, and we just weren't, up to par. And it's unfortunate because of the fact that you would think that those extra seedings would have helped, but didn't. We ended up getting eliminated Saturday. Didn't even make it towards the final day, but it is what it is. Next year is a difference. Is a new year, and hopefully, the Mets can make it on. The Yankees, New York's other team, they ended up making the playoffs as usual. Had a little bit of a slump at one point in the season. They had a hiccup. They were losing games, but they were able to find their groove back together. Ending the season strong, and they're going into the playoffs a little hot right now. They're gonna be facing a team in the Central. I'll tell you who they're gonna be facing soon. But yeah, teams that made the playoffs on the National League side. You got the Dodgers, the Brewers, the San Diego Padres. For the first time in 14 years, they made the playoffs. Wow, San Diego finally makes the playoffs. First time they made the playoffs since the Trevor Hoffman era, and that's been quite some time. You got the Cardinals, the Cubs as usual. Did we expect the Cubs to make the playoffs? Yeah, with more seedings, the first two what's it called, place winners in each division are automatically in, and the two best third place teams make the playoffs. We expected the Cubs to make the playoffs. They ended up winning the Central. It was a little bit more surprising. I figured that the Cardinals, but with the Cardinals having a COVID-like vacation, it ended up having to be the Cubs who capitalized on the advantage right there, the situation. Surprisingly, the Marlins, even a longer drought on missing the playoffs. The first time the Marlins make the playoffs. Last time the Marlins had made the playoffs was back in 2003, back when they ended up winning the whole thing. Last time they played a playoff game, they were at Yankee Stadium. Josh Beckett took them out at Yankee Stadium, finishing the game off by tagging Jorge Posada. I remember that day like as if I was still like yesterday, and I was very surprised. Nobody expected the Marlins to ever beat the New York Yankees back in 2003, but do we expect that to happen again? No, we do not. I mean, this is a different Marlins squad, younger. They're getting their feet wet in the majors, and they could possibly make some noise later on in the future. But I think it's a major victory that they ended up making the playoffs this year. You have the Atlanta Braves as usual. They won the NL East. We saw that with Max Fried. Unfortunately, they had lost Mike Soroka earlier in the season. I think it was a torn Achilles, if I'm not mistaken. But you still got players like Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr. You got what's his name, Dansby Swanson. and you got a list of hitters out there as well. So I mean, like Atlanta's looking good. Atlanta could possibly win it all. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They got great pitching rotation. They got good hitters. They put the ball in play. They make very little few mistakes. They don't beat themselves. I mean, who knows? They could possibly make it. And also the Cincinnati Reds. Wow, Cincinnati hasn't made the playoffs in since the Brandon Phillips era with Joey Votto still there. I think Dusty Baker was the last was the last manager to guide them into the playoffs. But yeah, Cincinnati made ends up going back to the playoffs, and I think what 9 years or something like that, 8 years, or something around that. That just very shocking, But they also made tons of acquisitions in the offseason. They ended up retaining Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, so that 1-2 combo is pretty deadly. I mean, Sonny Gray as a resurrection ever since he ended up going to Cincinnati, since he has left the Bronx, and Trevor Bauer, is looking like a possible Cy Young candidate. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't know if he'll be able to win it. It's a pretty hefty competition going along. Like I said, Joey Votto's still there. You got Eugenio Suarez still at third base. You got the guy from Chicago, Nicholas Castellanos. He ended up signing over there too. Mike Moustakas ended up signing with the Cincinnati Reds. So I mean, the Reds look pretty decent. I mean, that's a very interesting matchup right there between the Braves and the Reds. Oops, I kind of gave it away. And we'll get to that in just a second. And as for the American League side, teams that have made it, the Tampa Bay Rays, they were the number 1 seed in the AL. They got the 1 seed. They're going to be facing the Toronto Blue Jays. And you got the Cleveland Indians versus the Yankees. They got the Twins and the Twins and the Astros. Then I guess they didn't need the trash banging situation for them to make the playoffs. I mean, 60 games. I mean, still found the way. I don't know who knew. A's and White Sox is also the last matchup for the American League side. Wow. So, like I said, Dodgers and Brewers, Padres and Cardinals, Cubs and Marlins, Braves and Reds, Rays and Blue Jays, Indians and Yankees. You got Twins and Astros, A's and White Sox. So, all right, guys. Now, I'm going to tell you right now who I feel like is most likely to be upsetted and then most likely be able to move into the next round. Excuse me. Just all right. So with the Dodgers and Brewers, there is no chance of an upset over here. I mean, Dodgers got pretty much an all-star lineup, top to bottom. Pitching rotation with Walker Buehler. You got Dustin Mays. You got Clayton Kershaw. They got the best. They got the best roster in baseball. There's no way that the Brewers even sniff of an upset. I got the Dodgers winning because it's only best 2 out of 3. I got the Dodgers moving on to the NLDS. They ended up sweeping the Brewers. No chance that the Brewers even get even a win over the Dodgers. Padres and Cardinals. Now this should be interesting. Now normally Cardinals always make the playoffs, has tons of playoff experience. But it wouldn't be a shocker, but I'm gonna lean on the Padres. The Padres have been hot all year round. They want to challenge the Dodgers. They're gonna be, if they pull off the 2-game, if they pull off these 2 games that they need to win, then they'll be able to face the Dodgers in the NLDS, and that's when things can get interesting. I just feel like the Cardinals, they're not going to be able to keep up with the likes of Manny Machado. You're going to have Eric Hosmer, Tommy Pham. Of course, the superstar, the young superstar. And I think if he didn't get injured last year, would have won Rookie of the Year. Yes, I'm going to say I'm not going to be biased or anything like that. I know Pete Alonso won Rookie of the Year last year, but I feel like if Fernando Tatis didn't get hurt last year, it was a good chance he was going to be able to win Rookie of the Year last year. But yeah, Fernando Tatis, the young and up and coming superstar that's growing, in front of us. Padres look hot. They ended up making that trade for Mike Clevinger earlier in the year. They got Chris Paddock there too. Padres, look loaded right now. They look like they're gonna go for it all this year. I think that move by Clevinger is gonna help them out immensely enough in these playoffs, and I think that's gonna help them out on winning it all. Not winning it all, but winning this round in the wild card round, moving into the NLDS. Cubs and Marlins. Wow. Like I said, Marlins last time they ended up playing in the postseason was in 03. I told you who they beat in the World Series in 03. They ended up beating the New York Yankees. I didn't tell you who they faced before the Yankees. That was the Chicago Cubs. Deja vu, 17 years later. I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say it right now. The Marlins upset the Cubs 2-1. They move on to the NLDS. I'm not saying they're gonna win it all this year. Absolutely not. But I do think the Marlins upset the Cubs. It's a short series. You only got to win. You only got to have 2 wins to move on. I don't know. I just think the Marlins they have been up and down, but that roster right there, they're fearless. They have no fear at all. They're playing with house money right now. They're just glad to make the playoffs. The Cubs have been there. They're led by David Ross. And I think Cubs have all the pressure right now. When you have a team, led by Don Mattingly, which he has done an outstanding job. I mean, look what he's ended up able to do. I mean, they made the trade. The Marlins made a trade to get Starling Marte, and I was amazed. I was like, I didn't think that they were going to get Starling Marte. I was dumbfounded, but look how that trade is panning out for them. They look like that team that you just don't want to face in the playoffs just because of the fact that they got nothing to lose at this point. If they move on, great. More ammunition for them to keep trying. And if they get eliminated early, they did their best. Sure, they took a playoff spot from somebody that we expected them to make, but the Marlins did well. I mean, I predicted them to beat the last place team in the NL East, and I'm wrong. I'm sadly mistaken. I'm wrong. That roster, if you look at it, I'm like, we're not really impressed, but you got players like Sandy Alcantara, Yimi Garcia, Pablo Lopez, you got Jorge Alfaro, Jesus Aguilar, Brian Anderson. You don't really think of these players as like, oh man, like I got to really tune in to watch these guys. No. Yeah, Matt Joy is somebody that plays for the Rays. Good player, plays the right way. Starling Marte is probably the more famous player, on that roster right now. And you got like Corey Dickerson, who plays well, has a little bit of pop in his bat, but is not somebody that, oh wow, like this guy's gonna like scare me. These guys just play the right way, and I don't know, they play fundamental baseball. I just feel like the Cubs may make a little bit of mistakes, and Miami Marlins, they might be able to move on. I mean, Miami so far is looking good so far this year in sports. I mean, you got the Miami Heat making the finals for the first time in 6 years, but we'll say that for not take your base. I'm sorry, dropping dimes later this week. There's it's a lot to talk about for that episode. But moving on, getting back to Take Your Base. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that series. Should be interesting. And then Atlanta versus Cincinnati. This one will go 3 games. Honestly, it's going to depend on the hitting of the Braves versus the hitting of the pitching of the Reds. I'm comfortable with Trevor Bauer and Sonny Gray taking the mound. I'm comfortable with the bats of the Atlanta Braves. Just worried about that the third game pitcher. I'm worried about who's going to take the mound for Game 3 for the Cincinnati Reds because Atlanta's a good squad, led by Ronald Acuna, Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Nick Markakis. List goes on and on. I'm going to go with Atlanta. I want to say Cincinnati. That would have been nice to see. But Cincinnati's hopes and dreams of moving on into the playoffs end because they ended up facing a very well-disciplined, a very good Atlanta Braves squad. Cincinnati in the future should be able to contend, hopefully, for a title. If they continue to remain with the same pieces, I like what I see over there. But it's not their time. They're just running into a better squad at this point. Moving on to the American League. And guys, I'm only going to cover up until the NLDS. I'm not going to go into the NLCS. So as for this, I mean, we'll see what happens after the wild card round. And then I'll give you my predictions for the NLDS winners who move on to the NLCS. Like I said, the AL bracket. Tampa Bay Rays versus the Buffalo Blue Jays. Yes, I said it. The Buffalo Blue Jays. They do not play in Toronto this year, so we're going to call them the Buffalo Blue Jays. I see this in the series only going 2 games. Tampa takes it. Ian Snell and then Charlie Morton. They're gonna knock off the Sox. I mean, they're gonna knock off the Jays in 2 games. Like Tampa plays good baseball, make very few mistakes. Blue Jays. I believe this is their first time since 2016, if I'm not mistaken, since they made the playoffs. 4 years. Different squad and everything like that, but you got young players like Kevin Biggio, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Who's the other guy? Bo Bichette. I'm sorry. Yeah, Bo Bichette as well. They're just running into a good Tampa Bay squad. Sure, they have faced them plenty of times throughout the regular season, but when the game's on the line, I'm gonna rely on Kevin Cash to make the right calls. He's gonna bring in his bullpen. His bullpen is outstanding, and they're gonna shut the door. Tampa moves on in 2 games. Cleveland and the Yankees. Now, this is a series, in my opinion, because I don't know. Game 1 should be very, very, very interesting because of the fact that you have possibly the best matchups to look forward to in Shane Bieber versus Garrett Cole. Shane Bieber of the Cleveland Indians versus Garrett Cole of the New York Yankees. The $300 man versus the possible AL Cy Young for the 2020 season. Shane Bieber has been on fire, and this guy has looked like the best pitcher in the American League, possibly best pitcher in baseball this year. And he started off the season hot. Even his first start, I think his first start was like 14 Ks. Second start, he kind of almost matched that too. It's been outstanding. Really wish that Cleveland didn't trade Mike Clevinger because, wow, if they didn't trade Clevinger, I'll be heavily leaning on the Indians on pulling off the upset, but I do not. The Yankees are loaded, just like the Dodgers, with Giancarlo Stanton. I believe he should be coming back soon. If not, he's already back. Aaron Judge. You got DJ LeMahieu, Luke Voigt, Mike Tauchman. I can't believe I said Mike Tauchman, but yeah. Gio Urshela, if I said that correctly. Gary Sanchez, and then you still got, like I said, Garrett Cole. That amazing bullpen with Tommy Kahnle, Green. I think the Yankees are going to be able to pull this off in 3 games, 2-1. New York. I think Shane Bieber gets the Cleveland Indians their one and only win in Game 1, and the Yankees bounce back in Game 2 and in Game 3, moving on into the ALDS. Twins versus the Astros. Game 1 is going to be with Kenta Maeda versus Zach Greinke. No Justin Verlander, for these playoffs. He's out indefinitely. Won't be back until next year, which makes my decision easy. I'm going to go Twins 2-1 over the Astros. Astros haven't looked that great overall hitting-wise, and the Twins have been a slobber knocker with Josh Donaldson, Miguel Sano, Nelson Cruz. These boys hit homers as if like it's breakfast. All right, I got Twins 2-1. They're gonna Greinke probably gets you Game 1, and the Twins end up pulling off Game 2 and 3, moving on to the ALDS, meeting the winner between the A's versus the White Sox. Moving on to the A's and the White Sox, the final matchup between an American League bracket between the Oakland A's and the Chicago White Sox. Chicago hasn't been in the playoffs in quite some time. Oakland has looked really good this year. They've been the second best team in the American League. I'm gonna say Oakland takes it surprisingly 2-0. It's gonna be a very tough 2-0. It's gonna be for Game 1's matchup, Lucas Giolito versus Jesus Luzardo, and Oakland looks good. I mean, I've always had faith in Oakland. I had mentioned earlier on that I had predicted it in the ALCS, Yankees and Oakland, and whoever wins that most likely wins the whole thing. As of right now, I'm not sure if I'm going to, keep that same prediction going on. You guys will just have to find that out in a later episode. But Oakland, moves on to the ALDS in 2 games. It's not going to be easy. White Sox look like they have a promising future, with Tim Anderson, Lucas Giolito, Jose Abreu. So it's just not their time. Like I had said before, it's like the Cincinnati Reds. White Sox remind me of the Cincinnati Reds at this point. They're young, they're up and coming, they're ready to make some noise. They've been pounding the pavement since last year. They're always like the third place team right behind Cleveland and Minnesota for the last couple of years. Now they finally made some noise. They are in the playoffs this year. So the Oakland A's, they're just taking on a young Chicago White Sox team, and it's not Chicago's time this time. But yeah, so that's what I have for the wild card round. My predictions for MVP and Cy Young for the National League and the American League. For the National League, at one point I was leaning on Fernando Tatis in the National League, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Mookie Betts, and here's why. Mookie Betts just makes that team a lot better, has put up great numbers. He wasn't really dependent. He wasn't really dependent on like Fenway's small ballpark. He's picked off from where he last left off, from Boston going to Los Angeles. And he makes that lineup look so much dangerous right now. They honestly look like they could just win the whole thing. LA. I'll give you Mookie's numbers because I don't want to say the wrong stats. Give me 1 second. It's the same guy show. Sorry, guys. Things taking forever. Okay, so my stat line doesn't want to show for me at this point. It's ridiculous. But get back to you on my predictions. So for never mind. Yeah, so for the season, Mookie Betts had a 292 batting average with 16 home runs, 39 RBIs, 10 stolen bases with an OPS of 927. 800 is good. He is creeping he's already above 900. That is amazing right there. Amazing. For a career, he has an 895 OPS. So what's it called? I mean, you can already see, what he's done. OPS wise. But yeah, he had a fantastic year so far for 60 games. And imagine what he would have done with another 102 more games. I mean, the guy could have possibly hit, 40 home runs, 45 home runs, drove in, what's it called? Maybe like 100, 115, 120 RBIs. So, I mean, the guy had a fantastic year for 60 games. And that's my early predictions for MVP for the National League. For the National League Cy Young, now this one's very, very, very tough because it comes down to two pitchers, in my opinion. It's going to come down to not Shane Bieber, Trevor Bauer, and Jacob deGrom. Now, Trevor Bauer has had a fantastic year. What works in his advantage, in my opinion, is the fact that he's pitching in a hitter's ballpark. All-American Ballpark in Cincinnati has always been traditionally known as a hitter's ballpark. It's easy to hit the ball out of over the yard. Plenty of people, like Jay Bruce have had, great numbers. Joey Votto's had great numbers. He had an MVP, playing for the Cincinnati Reds. But for you to be a pitcher and to have the numbers that Trevor Bauer has had this year is remarkable. I mean, we're talking about, yes, the wins-loss record to me really doesn't matter. I think it's just mainly because of the fact that look where he's pitching at. But let's look at the ERA number. 1.73. 1.73. That is amazing right there. Now imagine he had played in a pitcher's ballpark, how much lower his ERA would have been. Got 100 strikeouts, even 73 innings, pitched in 11 games with a whip of 0.79. That is remarkable, guys. That is remarkable. I mean, you can't do better than that. You really can't. For somebody that's pitching in a pitcher's ballpark. Now, Jacob deGrom, like I said, I want to say that he is Cy Young, but didn't have much help offensively. Weren't giving him enough runs whenever he pitched. So his numbers were ERA wise wasn't like what it was for the last 2 years, but pitched in 12 games, has a 4-2 record, 4 wins, 2 losses, has a 2.38 ERA. Very good, right? Very, very good. Is it Jacob deGrom Cy Young numbers for the ERA? No, it's not. Last couple of years, it's been lower. It's been but my projection, if he was to pitch a whole 162, his ERA would have been around, give or take, like 2.05, maybe 2 flat. At the lowest, maybe like 190, which would have been amazing. Pitched 68 innings, got 104 strikeouts, and with a whip of 0.96. Very good numbers. He was the main reason why the Mets, I feel like, I had any possibility of making the playoffs. If I had to give it down to who deserved it more, I'm going to lean more on Trevor Bauer. And unfortunately, he will stop the streak of Jacob deGrom's continuation of a Cy Young award. It just works more favor for Trevor Bauer because pitcher's ballpark versus Jacob deGrom pitching. Bauer pitching in a hitter's ballpark versus Jacob deGrom pitching in a pitcher's ballpark. And Bauer ended up taking his team to the playoffs. deGrom didn't. And it's unfortunate, but I feel like if it was a 162 game season, deGrom would have had an easier chance of getting the Cy Young. 60 games, didn't have didn't have the numbers to prove that he was worthy for a third consecutive Cy Young. For the American League, I already hinted it out to you guys before. My American League Cy Young Award winner for this year is going to be none other than Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber, in my opinion, is the best pitcher, without a doubt, in the American League. Possibly the best pitcher in the majors. The reason why I say possibly is just because of the fact that Shane Bieber has been doing this since last year, but this year he's been having outstanding numbers. But only reason why he still hasn't got the lead over DeGrom, in my opinion, as best pitcher in baseball, he just got to have a little more longevity before I could just put him up there. But for Shane Bieber, 25 years old, had an outstanding season. This guy, there's no question in my mind this guy gets the Cy Young. Pitched in 12 games, has an 8-1 record with an ERA of 1.63. Has pitched in 77.1 innings with 122 strikeouts. Leads the majors in strikeouts with a WHIP of 0.87. And if you want to talk about what he has career stat wise, in 66 games pitched, he has a 34 win to a 14 loss record with an ERA of 3.32, 406 innings pitched. He's one shy of 500 strikeouts for his career with a WHIP of 1.10. Shane Bieber is only getting better. Watch out for next year. I think he's going to put up monster numbers. Cleveland, you better throw all the money that you can. Just because if you're not going to try to pay Francisco Lindor, you better pay this guy, because this guy looks like the real deal, and he's going to bring fans into attendance into Progressive Field. For the American League, MVP, now I'm thinking it comes down to Mike Trout and Shane Bieber. Mike Trout and Shane Bieber. Now, I already read you the stats for Shane Bieber for Cy Young. No doubt in my mind he ends up taking it. But for Mike Trout, I'll read you the stats right now. Angels roster. Oh, that's transactions. Just waiting for this thing to load up the stats. Sorry guys, I'm not that type of person that has everything right in front of me. It's going to be impossible to get every single player stat right in front of me. But, all right, so Mike Trout stats for the 2020 season. Average of a 281, 17 home runs, 46 RBIs, had one stolen base. A little shocked about the one stolen base. But here's the number that sticks out. An OPS of 0.993. OPS of 0.993. His on-base percentage is outstanding. That means he's getting a bunch of walks. I mean, he might be getting hit by pitches too, but he's doing everything that he can. Look, the traditional stats say that 281, that is decent. 17 home runs is really good for 60 games, along with 46 RBIs. But the OPS is outstanding right there. I mean, look at that. That's incredible right now. He ended up having, look, career-wise, he had hit his 300 career home run. Average-wise for his career is 304, 302 career home runs, 798 career RBIs, and 201 stolen bases with an OPS of 1,000. Look, guys, I mean, not many players can even sniff 900 like that. This guy's close to 1,000. That's to show you right there that this guy's the best player in baseball. But unfortunately, he does not win MVP for the American League. It is Shane Bieber. Like I said before, I think, in my opinion, making the playoffs count. The Angels did not make the playoffs. The Cleveland Indians did. And I think what helps out more is that Cleveland, they traded away a really good pitcher in Mike Clevinger. They relied on Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber had an 8-1 loss record. All right. And Mike Trout, with all the numbers that he ended up putting up with a 0.993 on base percentage, that still wasn't enough to take his team to the playoffs. I'm gonna lean more on Shane Bieber. I think what you do as a team, how you help out your team in advancing and reaching the playoffs matters more than stat wise. And the fact that Shane Bieber has kind of carried that team. I know he has Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez, but like I said, making the postseason matters more to me than those crazy stat numbers, and Shane Bieber just gets it. All right, it's pretty remarkable what Mike Trout has done in his career. The biggest blemish on his career is that he hasn't really been able to make the playoffs consistently. I think he's only made the playoff once in his entire career, and that's unfortunate because he's the best player in baseball, and not too many people know about that. People that normally don't watch baseball consistently don't even know that he is the best player in baseball. But yeah, so guys, I already gave you my thoughts and opinions on who's going to win MVP, Cy Young from both leagues, who to look out for. The best matchup, in my opinion, is still Game 1 between Cole and Shane Bieber. Disappointing team that didn't make the playoffs is the New York Mets. And the playoffs start tomorrow. First game starts at 2 o'clock. And I can't wait. Playoff baseball is one of the best postseasons to look forward to. And just stay tuned and watch. All right, guys. I got to get to bed. Got a long day tomorrow. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night, guys. Peace.